Hey, loves, and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive Like a Mother podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ebony, and today I am welcoming a guest on with us whose journey, y'all, is truly rooted in something that every one of us is familiar with, and that's home. Scott Harris, he is a top real estate agent in New York City with over $1.5 billion in sales. But y'all, what really makes his story unique is not just the success. It is the heart behind it. It is growing up as a child of divorce and constantly moving. Scott really, he developed a deep understanding of how where we live truly shapes how we feel. And he's also the author of an upcoming book called The Pursuit of Home, which really digs deep and explores into what home really means, not just physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. And so, Scott, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here and honestly honored for you to just be able to share your story with our listeners today. And I really want to just start with the beginning of your story because, in us meeting, you shared with me how you were constantly moving between your homes during your childhood. So, can you just start with sharing just what that experience was like and what it really taught you about people?
Well, first, thanks, Ebony, for having me on. It's great to be here and
Yes.
to talk about the book and to talk about how I poured myself into the book. And it started really, I'll start in the middle and then go back. When I first got into real estate in New York, I was in the rental side of things, which is
Hmm.
it's a huge rental market in New York, but it
Yes.
felt like a hustle. I worked every day, grinding, 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 and I was really good at it, but it felt very emotionally unsatisfying. It was
Mm.
money, but there was no meaning, right? And I started into the sales side of things, and I closed a sale for a little old lady, a little tiny studio
Oh,
apartment. She was this really wonderful Italian woman, classy and great, and she'd gotten divorced and moved to New York. I helped her find this high floor apartment. She didn't need it to be big, but she looked out onto the river, and it was really satisfying, and all of a sudden, I was realizing, "Wait a minute, this is something different."
yeah.
And as I spent more time exploring that, I started to realize that it was helping other people find homes was doing something for me emotionally, and I started thinking about my childhood. So, kinda going back to your question, was that, my parents got divorced when I was 8, which was a really, for me, a very kind of I was a really impressionable, precocious kid, and it really knocked me for a loop, and I went back and forth every week or every 2 weeks between my parents. At
Mhm.
first, it was like a few days at a time, then it grew to a week on, week off, and then it was 2 weeks, and only when I was in college did I stop moving. Did I stay
Wow.
in one place for more than, 2 weeks at a time? And that was really, I didn't know where I was. You wake up sometimes, you don't
Yeah.
know where you are, and it was definitely an interesting way to grow up. And I'm not saying I had parents who love me, and I'm really blessed to have those, to have them in my life, but it was a hard
Yeah.
for me.
That
Yeah.
is understandable. Gosh, how did that experience just as a child and then you're talking about your experience with your first sale with the little old woman, like how did that start to shape how you work with families now and today?
Once I started getting into helping people buy apartments, buy
Mhm.
homes, it was a different level of getting to know someone. It wasn't like, "Oh, you need a rental 2 weeks from now. Let's go do
Yeah.
this." That's very transactional.
Yeah.
What I started to realize is that with people and getting to know them, it was more about a transition,
Hmm.
and people are looking to do something more in their lives, and so their home is, the way I describe it in the book, your home is a launch pad for whatever you're trying to do. Finding the home and, like, moving in, that's not the end, it's the beginning, right? So
Yeah.
I'm helping people set their life up so that they can go and live it, and so it just became bigger and more, it felt like more and more of a sacred calling,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
it's I know that real estate agents have these terrible reputations. Oh, like, it's like you're one step above, like, a tow truck driver, like something like that, and at the same time, I realized that actually It's something much, much bigger that
Mhm.
if you treat yourself like somebody that you're just trying to get deals done, then guess what? You're that person that's one step up from the truck driver, the tow truck driver.
Yeah.
But if you treat yourself like I'm doing something really, really fundamentally important for my
Mhm.
clients, it changes the game completely. And so over time, it started to open my eyes as to what I could really help people do. And
Yeah.
I've had clients, it's New York. So we've seen people
Yes.
who are up to big stuff. They moved to New York, people writing best-selling books and people
Mhm.
launching massive companies and people who are like leaders in their industries. And it is a joy to meet them at their most stressed and their most worried and frustrated and anxious. They're human
Yeah.
beings like everybody else. Everybody goes through this and it is a stressful transition. And to get to hold them, metaphorically speaking, figuratively
Yeah.
speaking, has been over time it becomes more and more clear what is I'm doing.
Yeah. That is powerful. Yeah. And I think about it now, think about just me and my family and our process of buying a home. We purchased our home like right after, almost the end of the pandemic and things people started to get back into the groove, and it was very stressful, very stressful. It's a lot, and it's important to have, like you said, those real estate agents out there that truly understand like what it is to be in that position, and understand like what the importance of home is, not only just for that family and, really for their future. So I want to dig into the book a little more, The Pursuit of
Yes.
Home. What led you to write this book? What inspired you truly to write it?
Well, it started by just a desire to write down all of the stories of all of the crazy things. If you can imagine that
Hell yeah.
N New York is a lot of things on steroids, and
Mhm.
real estate is definitely one of these things it's people wanna think of it as hyper competitive, it's on TV and all this. For me, it's just I'm helping people do their thing, but the stories are crazy, and I just started writing them, and then about 3 years ago, I was at a real estate conference, I was jet lagged, I was up in the middle of the night, and I was listening to a conversation an interview with a this is like an old interview, like, late
Mhm.
'80s between a guy named Bill Moyers, who actually just passed away, and an author and a really deep thinker named Joseph Campbell, who wrote the sort of the book about what's called the hero's journey.
Mm.
All the myths, all the stories of every culture in the world has this story, and it shows how do we know it now? It shows up in Disney movies. It
Yeah.
shows up in Star Wars. It's that young person who has all these skills. It's Moana, like
Yeah.
she's gifted and she doesn't know it, and she's going through this whole process, and at the end, she comes into her power, and it occurred to me that the home buying journey is a hero's journey. You go
Mm.
into it and you go through this emotional journey that and by the way, every home buyer goes through some version of this and no
Yeah.
one talks about it. And
Yeah.
so what I live it. And so it occurred to me, wait a minute, if everybody goes through this and 65% of Americans own their homes, Ebony.
Mhm.
So, it's like the most common emotional,
Yeah.
spiritual journey that people take. More people buy a home than maybe go to church, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, I looked around, surely somebody's talking about this, and I could not find a
Yeah.
book that
Wow.
really talked about it, so I said, "Well, I'm gonna write this book," and it really felt like a calling to talk about what it is people actually go through step by step by step, and what kind of a roadmap, what kind of a guide can I give them so that they have a better experience?
Mm, yes, yeah. And I think you bring up a great point that, a lot of us go through this and we're not talking to each other about it, And I
Yeah.
think, especially on this podcast, I focus a lot on helping people understand, like, hey, you're not alone in this journey. You're not the only one thinking these thoughts. Maybe we have some differences, obviously, in our journeys. All of our journeys are different, but there are spots where you can really connect with someone and say, like, you too, like, I'm not the only one dealing with this. So I would love for you to share, what is it specifically in your book that you want people to walk away from with? I know you talked about, it's the roadmap, right? Is there anything else specific that you want them to walk away with?
Yeah, the biggest thing is that first the book, the tone, it's very encouraging. This isn't meant to scare people away. It's actually meant to say, look, you can do this and you can have a better outcome at the end. So
Yes.
the takeaway is you can empower yourself at each step of this journey, and here's
Mhm.
how you do it. You know, the premise is it's really hard to get off that couch. It's really hard to like get into
Yeah.
action. You need support. You're saying that you're not alone. You don't have to go through this alone, and you're really not going to be alone anyway. So here's how you get to know yourself a little bit better. What's your communication style? How do you
Mm.
choose an agent to work with? The big
Yeah.
stat, which is that so many people are unhappy, but 71% of home buyers hire the first agent that they meet. That
Wow.
is a crazy stat. People
Yeah.
spend more time planning their weekend vacation and they do planning, hiring the person that's going to make such a massive impact in their life. So if there's any one takeaway, it's like, look, you have the power to be a little more intentional, prepare a little bit more. And as scary as it is, it doesn't have to be scary. You just have
Yeah.
to, here's the whole process, and step by step so that you don't have to be full of all of this doubt and anxiety and you can go in ready for what may show up for you.
Yeah. Jeez, yeah. That perspective, especially that you almost have to have like an interview process with
And
the
I lay it
person
out in the
that's
book. I lay it out,
yeah,
like, here are the
that's
questions you
perfect.
ask. Does this person how do you feel when you interview with
Mm,
this person? Do you feel like they're seeing you and hearing you and understanding what you're going through? And of course, because almost 3/4 of home buyers are a couple, so
yeah. Oh,
often you
yeah.
have 2 different communication styles, and
Mhm.
you have to have an agent who can speak both languages, right?
Yes.
And so I'm not saying you have to have any like, I've been doing this for more than 20 years. I'm not saying you have to have a 20-year-old vet. There are plenty of amazing agents. I've interviewed them for the book and for my podcast that they're incredible. They've been doing this for 4 years. They
Yeah.
just have a gift. So it's really about choosing somebody that works for you. It's not about like, I don't have the answer. You are in the whole book. It's like you have the knowledge inside of you. We just have to
Yes.
get it out. And so there's a lot of tips about how to find the answers within yourself.
Wow. Yes. I love that. I love that. So I want to switch gears a little bit because I have you and I know there are a lot of moms and women who listen to the podcast and they have dreams of like building a business and really don't know where to start. And obviously, Scott, you have built a very successful real estate business in New York. What do you think really sets your people first approach apart from everyone else?
Okay, well, there are a couple things in there that I wanna address. One, I end up working with and I've worked with lots of women who are buying homes on their own.
Mm,
And buying a home is really an entrepreneurial venture because you have to build a vision of what it is that
yeah,
you would love.
yeah.
And so, what sets me apart, you talked about people first. It's very much a vision driven process
Hmm.
that I'm focused on the people and getting to know them and allowing for more intuition to come into the process. Yes, we know what we're doing. We're amazing negotiators. We've sold $2 billion of real estate. So I mean it's the proof is there and the system works.
Yes.
And because so many people are unhappy with the process, I'm like, what's the harm? What's the downside to trying it in the way that we recommend, which is
Yeah.
build a vision first, build a first draft of your vision, and then slowly get to know better and better through our method of
Hmm.
how that is going to clarify your vision. You're building towards something. And so what separates us, I think, is our ability to engage with the people in front of us. And there's a four-step process that I call the magnetic method. I think it would work for building any business, anything else. It's
Yes.
about how do you activate that burning desire for home? Activate. That's step one. Two, aligning. It's called align all the parties, get everybody rowing in the same direction.
Yes.
If you're building a business, you don't need to be hanging out with the people who aren't supporting you. You know who the people who are
Yeah.
your biggest fans, and you know the
Hmm.
people that are like, "Huh, what is she doing?" Like kinda
Yeah.
judging silently. Though you wanna find your fans, you wanna find your fan base to support you, and so aligning everybody, getting everybody rowing in the same direction is huge, whether you're buying a house or whether you're building a business, and then the third step is amplify. We're really focused on, like, provoking the right answers, clarifying your vision, doing all of these things so like you get clearer and clearer on what it is you're doing. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people get scared when they have some setbacks growing a business.
Mhm.
I've had so many setbacks, my gosh,
Yeah.
over the years and people leaving the team and deals falling apart, you name it. We've gone through it, but that's not the time when you give up. It's like, okay, what is there to be learned? And it's like just continuing on because you're getting clear all the time about what you do well. And then ultimately, the fourth step is attract. That's why we call it the magnetic method because the clearer your vision, the more the answers and more the resources show up for you.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that to tell a super smart, super successful person that we're gonna build a vision and then your home is gonna be delivered to you, that sounds crazy
Yeah.
a
A
little
little
bit,
bit.
right?
You have to
But I've
trust
s
the
if you go
process.
go talk to every talented real estate agent out there, and they
Mhm.
will tell you the same thing. We got clear, there was nothing available, but all of a sudden we got a much better sense of what they were looking for, and
Yeah.
the house showed up the next day,
Mm.
again and again and again. So, maybe it sounds a little woo-woo, maybe it sounds a little out there, but I see it in my business, and it
Yes.
works, and it's a much the more that the client, the home buyer can focus on what is important to them and let us just hold that space for them,
Yeah.
the better the outcome. And
Absolutely.
instead of fighting back and fighting, it's like allow it to come to you. You got to go see a lot of property. In business, you got to take a lot of action. You got to kiss a lot of frogs. You got to do the work, but you can do it with the knowing like, okay, I've got my vision. I know what I'm going for. I know what I'm going for. Some days are good. Some days you can't see the progress.
Yeah.
So a long answer to a short question.
Yes, no, that was perfect, especially in trusting the process. A lot of the times I mean, all the time, really, you don't see the end result until you get there, right? You really have to just keep trusting and staying curious. So I want to chat to a lot of the women in this community. They are in those seasons of transition, right? They're new mothers, maybe they're going through a divorce, maybe they are working on, building their family, going through healing journeys. Can you give them some ways, some practices of your own that help them stay grounded during those big life shifts, especially when they are looking for a home?
Wow. I mean, I feel honored that you'd asked the question.
Yeah.
For me, beginning of the day before the house, I have 3 kids. I have an
Mhm.
amazing wife. She's incredible and really nothing works without our partnership. But that early morning time where I can kind of sit in more of a quiet house and just be grateful for all that I have that I've gotten to build and I like to say I like co-created it with God.
Yes.
And to be able to give yourself that gift every day, I think is a really important practice, and that can be a walk. And I don't claim that everybody's got a perfect situation like that, but you can do things like not check your email for the first hour of your
Mhm.
day. That's
Yeah.
something you can choose to do. That your to do list is your to do list, and that email is somebody else's to do list. So like, don't get sucked into your day
Mhm.
before. I think those are easy, actionable things you can do. I know, like, kids go to bed, my kids are my youngest is 9, but I still remember how crazy it gets at night, but, like,
Yeah.
don't watch as much TV. You can go to bed a tiny bit earlier and get up a little earlier, like, it's you're not giving up, your life, I think there's a lot of things you can do to manage your own, mindset, and I tell people all the time, certainly during the home search,
Yes.
stop watching the news.
Oof.
Stop watching the news.
Yeah.
Stop watching the news. You know what?
Mhm.
Mortgage rates and
Oh,
and
yeah.
inventory and all this other stuff that's like, oh, and whoever gets elected and whoever's
Mhm.
doing what and whatever political side of whatever side of the fence you think you're on, it doesn't matter. You're trying to move
Yeah.
forward in your life,
Yes.
Like if you just stay close to your vision for what you're trying to do and keep talking. The thing that I think women do better than men by a long shot is communication. I think women run businesses and I've seen my operations person, her name's Karen. She's incredible. And like just the communication line needs to
Yeah.
stay open. So finding a home, just to shift it to the home piece, you have to be willing to share your vision with other people. Not everybody, not that judgmental cousin,
Yeah.
not the aunt that's like thinking that you're too cool and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
when you get your bonus and you're saving money, don't go and talk to the person who's going to ruin your good mood. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
you gotta
but share
protect
your
it.
vision with people, share your vision with the people who are going to support you because the more you talk about it, the more you get more clear about it and then you can share it with your real estate agent and you can just put it out there in the world.
Yes.
Guess what? It's true of building your business. If you don't communicate it because you're afraid, well, what if it doesn't play out that way? What if it doesn't? What if it
Yeah.
doesn't?
Yeah, but what
Guess
if it
what?
does?
It's not you're not going to die. I mean,
Yeah,
how many like I
that's
just
true.
wrote this book, scariest process ever. I've got this thing that I've been writing, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden I have to share it with agents and like try to sell it, get the book to get it to a publisher. And you hear no a ton. And some agents are like, well, why don't you write the book about like make it a tell-all? Go make it
Yeah.
like a gossipy thing. I'm like, that would
Oh.
be the furthest thing I ever want to do. I love my clients and I want to honor them, but you have to put it out there. You have to be
Mhm.
willing to know I'm going to get some rejection in this and things aren't going to go how I expect. But the more you share it, it's amazing how much shows up to help you. It's just like the universe wants you to have that home you love. The universe wants to see you have a successful business. And I mean, I know it's like, you can sort of hear like, oh, like the doubts and fears and whatever. And it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not a straight line. It's usually like crazy. But the more you communicate, the less can be afraid. It's like you just talk about it and then it's out of your body. And I think
Yes.
I think something that I have to constantly remind myself of to stay in
Yeah,
communication with people.
that
Yeah.
is true. That is true, and I know I talk a lot about this on the podcast about the mental load of moms and
Mm.
how constantly trying to keep all of that, in your head. Sometimes you have to let it out, especially in the buying process.
Yeah. Can I say something here?
Yes.
You know, I right. I'm very lucky because mm, I'm more of the visionary person in our family. My wife is more of the operations. And by the way, so It's there's a whole day to do with kids and everything else. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
full day, and I think it's incredible how much people get done in their day. So it's if it's too much for one person, that's what the agent is for.
Mhm.
That's you have to build that team of people who you trust.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do it on your own. Give you permission to say, I'm not good at this one thing. I'm
Yeah.
going to find a person to do it. And that's real estate agents get paid to find
Yeah.
you a home. That's
Mhm.
what they do. And if they care first,
Mhm.
they really care about you, they're going to do it in a way that feels like you're not being sold something. And
Yes.
so I think you just have to you have to trust your own gut about who to surround yourself with, but do surround yourself with people who are going to help move things forward.
Yes. Yeah. I love that, Scott. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So as a father and soon to be published author, I love seeing the book in the back there. What kind of legacy are you hoping to build?
This is, it's one of these things when I was speaking to my publisher, Matt Holt, about the book coming out. He's like, well, why did you write this book? Are you trying to grow your business? You're trying to make a bunch of money or whatever. And I was like, look, I want to make an impact. I want to change the conversation around home buying
Mm.
because it's gotten very much about the transaction. And then on TV, it's all about, you know, especially in New York. And I know all of these
Yes.
agents. I mean, I rub elbows with all of these folks all the time, and they're great agents. But what they do on TV has nothing to do with what they do in real life. And so, if I
Yeah.
can change the conversation back to this is what people actually go through, this is what you're going to go through, and turn it into a much because it's on the top 5 most stressful things people put themselves through. It's right
Yeah.
up there with divorce, like you were talking about, or losing a loved one, or moving as a concept is really stressful. So if you have a better handle on what you're going to go through, you're going to have a better experience. You're going to have a less stressful experience. You might even have a fun experience. And so I really think if there's a legacy I want to leave, it's that this conversation needs to change, and I think this book can really help reframe the way
Mhm.
people think about home buying. And I will just add one little, tie on to that, which is to say that there's been a lot of talk about, oh, the American dream is dead and, what people
Mhm.
want to achieve in their life and build, that it's not possible anymore. And I want to change that conversation too. I think that
Yes.
people need to hear that their dreams are valuable, that they are valuable, that they can pursue whatever they want to pursue, and that a home isn't separate from that journey. It's
Mhm.
actually a huge component of what they're trying to do, and that if they pursue finding a home with the same attitude of, like, openness and really trying to be carry their lives and grow their lives, the house is gonna help them. It's gonna
Yeah.
help build community. It gives them the foundation to give back. I mean, I talk a lot about in the last chapter of the book about people who start Bible studies in their homes, and that
Mhm.
just turns into this whole philanthropy, and people who start their businesses under their roof, and it turns into something huge. The home
Yes.
is where it starts,
Yeah.
and I think that if we get any of that sort of more out into the world, I think it'll be a wonderful outcome.
Yes. Absolutely. Goodness. All right. Well, Scott, thank you so much for sharing with your heart today and sharing your story with us. But before we go, can you let our listeners know where they can connect with you, follow your work, and really stay updated on the pursuit of home?
Okay. They can go to pursueyourhome.com if they wanna look up all the resources for the book. They want to pre-order the book, which is depending on when this comes out, it'll either be still in pre-order or they can buy the book there. And if they want to follow me on socials, I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. So Scotty Harris with an IE. They can find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn. They can look me up. And I talk a lot about more of the nuts and bolts of what it means. It's kind of a heart centered, business focused more voice there. But those are easy places to engage. We can talk. I wanna talk to home buyers. I wanna wherever they are in the country, I interview
Yes.
people for my podcast, and we
Agree.
we try to it's almost like a therapy session. It's like, "Hey, what are you going through? What are you looking
Yeah.
for?" And maybe there's some nugget in there, something we can get in and, like, shift, and then the whole process goes better.
Yeah. I love that. Gosh. Well, I hope listeners today that this episode reminded you that home is more than just four walls. It's really, honestly, y'all, how we care for ourselves, how we show up for others, and how we can continue to write our stories one choice at a time. So until next time, again, thank you, Scott. Just keep growing, keep healing, and keep thriving.